Why do they always have the? You know, what's that with the Wolfman, the Lon Chaney style werewolf? Oh, their jaws are like this, or why? What is that with that? What's with that design? Like, I get that with the teeth, it kind of like judges out the jaw, but we know that that's not what a wolf's design is like. I'll be honest, I'm more of a fan of the designs of the werewolf that look like the Van Helsing werewolf or Werewolf in London, Dog Soldiers. I prefer the canine humanoid lupine form rather than the man that looks kind of hairy with fangs like myself. Anyway, Wolfman. I look more like the Wolfman with his beard than what we got. Wolfman. I saw it last night. My out of the theater review was out, and now is my full review. Now I stand by what I said in my out of the theater reaction review. I like this movie. I actually think it's a pretty good movie. It is not as good as the last one though, with The Invisible Man, which this director also did. Director being, what's his name now? Where are you? Where are you, director? Hey, director. Director Leigh Whannell. It's not as good as Invisible Man, and it's not as good for several reasons. But we'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit. The story is legitimately what you see in the trailer. This guy with his family go to basically empty out his dad's house after he's declared dead, and they are run off the road. This guy sees because he sees something standing in the middle of the road. It looks like an animal, but it stands like a man. And it's a wolf. Obviously, it's the Wolfman, and he gets infected and starts transforming. And the idea is, what if the one that's supposed to protect you is the danger? And several things I liked about the movie right at the gate. It is tense. Like they make it feel, I wouldn't say claustrophobic, but they definitely make it feel tight. Especially when you're in the house, you're like, this thing is outside. What the hell are we going to do? And there's nowhere to go. So there's already tension built in there. It is, and it does not skimp on when it needs to get horror, not horrible, but horror. When it needs to be horror, I think is a better way to put it. It does get brutal. There are some good jump scares. There are also there's also legit gore in the film too. There's scenes where I just want like seriously. So there are scenes where you just go ooh, like that, and it's well acted for what it's worth. Especially, I said this in the review, the Out of Theater, but Christopher Abbott, who plays Blake. By the way, one of the things Blumhouse does with these low budget films is get actors who you don't immediately know the names of. Like, you could probably recognize them if you thought on it, but you don't think words here. You don't know them. They're not like A-list stars or anything like that, which is a great vehicle for new talent. But yeah, Christopher Dan is a character in the movie, but Christopher Abbott plays Blake, who's the father. And you really, first off, I think they do a surprisingly good job setting up this family as not a happy family at the moment. Like, he's trying. We open up with him and his dad in the beginning of the film, and they're hunting, and they have an encounter with a wolfman, and then his dad he's been distanced from his dad for 20, I think it was 20 years, 15 years, something like that, 30 years, something like that. And it's revealed that they are having struggles in their marriage, but he's actually very open. He's not blaming anyone per se. He's blaming he's taking accountability while saying we aren't in a good place right now. We need to do something. And so please, and so I feel like, even though maybe it was rushed through a little bit, I feel like the two big scenes involving it, or the three big scenes involving the family, which take place within the span of 15 minutes, admittedly, I think it was handled very well. We learn a lot about him pretty quick. That he's not trying not to be his father. But he's also he kind of hated his father, but also misses his father. That their marriage isn't in the best spot. I will admit that there's not a fight, and the daughter even said, "Daddy, Mommy, don't fight." This is not a fight. This is a spirited exchange. Yeah, I'll fully admit, I think the wife was in the wrong on that. Like all he did was ask, "Hey, could you take that into the other room?" And she wasn't listening to him. Like she just completely ignored his ass. And it's like he just asked, "Could you take that in the other room, please?" And you just decided to be an ass about it. Like I gotta side with the husband on that one. And she even acknowledges that she's had some input. Like she doesn't quite know how to connect with her daughter like she used to. So I do like that setup. So you at least buy these people as someone you don't want to see hurt or die. And then when the Wolfman stuff happens, it doesn't take very long. It happens pretty quick. Once we get into the main story, which is in its essence a survival story. It is, but it's surprisingly kind of a slow burn werewolf movie. Because the transformation of him into the werewolf is taking a giant chunk of the film to get to. It isn't just in 5 minutes. No, it's like taking hours for this. It's described as an infection, and it's questionable whether or not it really is an infection or not. We never really see a full moon out, so I guess. But all right, whatever. But point being is, we see the progression and his senses start to to get super heightened. We see he's got super night vision, but you see it in the trailer. There's a scene where he's kind of talking to his wife, and he can't understand the words coming out of her mouth. But at the same time, when he speaks to them, his words are garbled too. Like for whatever reason, his lines of communication are just completely screwed up. And so it's really interesting to see the progression of it to there. Now, for all of that, this is not a perfect film. There are several issues I actually had with the film, thinking on it more in hindsight, which is why I like doing a short out of the theater review now. And I like the fact that YouTube extended the shorts to 3 minutes instead of 1, because it allows me to do a short review and then get my further thoughts it up. 1, they never really address there's this line of oh, by the way, one other good thing I should say, it looks nice. There's some great landscape shots, even if they're fake. There's this shot of the valley which could have been CGI. I have a feeling it was a real the valley might have been real. Or at the very minimum, this aerial shot of this house, in the middle of Oregon, that was a lovely shot. Well, pointing, they make mention of that there was this hiker that went missing and may have been infected with disease. We know that's the case, and that's where the first Wolfman that we see at the very beginning, what his dad is. We never learn what happens to that Wolfman. There are 3 Wolfmans in the movie. There is the man, there's our main character, there's one at the very beginning, and then there was the current one that attacked them and that infected him. And there's heavy implication of what happened there, and they never go into it, so I have to assume it is that. But it leads me into another big problem with this, and this is where I want to give the comparison to The Invisible Man, because The Invisible Man was honestly a completely new original take on the concept. It's not like you literally took a formula and turned invisible. No, it's a suit, it's tech, and it's a psychopath controlling, manipulative monster of a human being who has it. And that's frightening as F. And then she makes it look like he kills himself by putting on the suit. That's really it's a cool idea. Honestly, when we got past the intro of his childhood and him to adulthood, and they talk about one particular plot point, I'm like, it's going to be this. And sure enough, it was that. And I'm like, oh, okay. And well, where's this going to end? I'm like, okay, I didn't quite know where it's going to end, but it then ended, and I'm like, really? We're just leaving it on. I mean, I give you credit. You're clearly not trying to aim for a cinematic universe, but that's where we're going to end it. So it's a movie where you can kind of piece it together as it's going along. So the lack of unpredictability isn't necessarily a knock against it, but it's not. Sometimes the movie just needs to do its job, and for what it's worth, this movie overall I think did its job. And I think it did its job pretty well. But then we get into the other big thing that a lot of people kind of brought up when we first saw it. Now, when we first saw this image, we all went, what the F? No, that is not a werewolf. That is the guy who guards the bridge at the gate guards the bridge of death in Monty Python and the Holy Grail. He's just been juicing. But that is not a goddamn werewolf. And like, let me make this a little bigger. In fact, I'm gonna like, let's look at this again. It's a little blurry, but that is not a goddamn werewolf. Whoopsie. So there's that. But that being said, I don't know why they showed us this, because this isn't the werewolf we see in the movie. Like, no joke, in all 3 instances that we see a werewolf, we barely see the one in the beginning. Then there's the one that attacks him, and we eventually see it in full view, and then we see what he turns into. And there's even a clip online of him turning into the werewolf. This is not the werewolf, so I don't... Maybe it was one of those things where they heard the backlash and decided, okay, we need to maybe change this up. I didn't hear anything about reshoots, but I can just tell you right now, this is not the werewolf. This isn't even the hiker that they allegedly said was the werewolf. So I do not know for the life of me where that came from. Now, the werewolf design we do get, I think I described it best as it's a little combination of the original Lon Chaney. Actually, it's got a little bit of Werewolf by Night in there. And it's a little combination of Howl, not the Howling, but Howl. Takes place in the UK. It's about people on trains stuck in the woods, and the werewolves are there. Now, it's not overly, it's not like that. It's not as drastic that, but it's kind of like that where, without giving too much away, it goes to what I was kind of saying earlier, where I'm not as big a fan of non-lupine werewolves. More humanoid-looking, fur-covered men as werewolves, not a big fan of it. It's not the worst design in the world. I'll say that. And they do definitely make it out to be more like an infection that kind of just warps who you are. But I can't say I loved it. I'll say this, I'm pretty neutral on it. If I were to like rank my favorite werewolf designs, and I'd have to be ranking every single one that ever existed, and that's a lot of freaking designs. I don't know, put it in the comments. I got, at least 10 people saying yes if you want me to do that, but that's a lot of goddamn werewolf movies. But it's not my favorite werewolf design, but it's not my least. It's just kind of in the middle. But what bothers me about the design isn't the design itself. It's the design we didn't see. Because we barely see the werewolf in the very beginning, the Wolfman that we see in the very beginning. I just repeated myself, I don't know why. That him and his dad encounter in the very beginning of the film. But we see like a really like brief silhouette of it. And it's a lot hairier than what we get. And it's almost like Bigfoot turned into a werewolf, kind of. That's kind of what it comes off as. We even see it has a lot of hair. So the question, like, it's very, very hairy. So, or at least from what we saw from the legs of it. So I'm not exactly sure what's going on that. Like, I just finished watching Roanoke Gaming. I'm sure he's going to do a video on this movie at some point. I hope, Roanoke, not that you watch me, but if you do watch me, I mean, you maybe at least bring that up, that the little we see of that first one, it's a lot hairier than the other two. I'm wondering if because it was like the sickness had just gone on for so long that the wolf traits just came through a lot more. But we don't know how long that guy had been sick, and the other wolf probably had been sick for a while. So, and it wasn't anywhere near as hairy as the other one. So, I don't know. It's one of the things where I'm like, I think there was a better design that still followed these parameters that you could have gone with. On the whole, I still got enough of the wolf-like design, the Wolfman design, because to be fair, the Wolfman is a werewolf, but werewolves are not wolfmen, if that makes any sense. There is a difference between a werewolf and a wolfman. The werewolf is definitely more wolfen, like more lupine in nature, whereas the Wolfman is more humanoid, but still with the wolfen traits. It's still a werewolf, obviously. It's just not the same type of werewolf, I guess is the best way to put it. That being said, you still could have gone at least a little hairier. I mean, come on, my face looked more Wolfman than what we got in that movie. Again, I don't think it's the worst. I don't know. It's about down the middle for me. But look, that's neither here nor there. Is it a little predictable? Yes. Could you see some plot points coming? Absolutely. Was I kind of disappointed at the end of it? No, I wouldn't say I was disappointed. I was more surprised that was just, oh, okay, we're just ending it here. Okay. But on the whole, I still think it was a well-made movie, a very solid movie. Now, as it stands, it doesn't have the best Rotten Tomatoes score. If I remember correctly, last I saw it was 58. Maybe it's gone up, maybe it's gone down at this point. But again, remember, it's not about the audience, it's not about the critics' score per se. It is ultimately going to be what the audience thinks. If the audience gives it a pretty good score, that does mean that there will be enough people to go back to see it that it could probably do well. So it's gone down to 55, and the audience score actually isn't too good either. It's 62, which is positive, but that's not the best for repeat viewings. Now, I think it will still have a decent opening weekend. I mean, I don't know what's tracking for, but anything say over 15 million, I would say that's a win. I would say you can't look at anything. I can't look at that as anything more or anything less than a win, 15 or above. Because the movie's only made on 25 million, to be fair. And yeah, oh god, it's actually lower, 54. Now, that being said, at 139 views, I don't think it's going to be going down much lower than that. We'll have to wait and see what ultimately does this. Because on a $25 million budget, my guess would be you're only looking at about the same in marketing. So a $75 million gross, if it can do that, that's a win. That I would say that's, well, I mean, if it can do that, it's a win. If it can do that, that is a that's breaking even. So if it can make 100 million, which I'm not saying it will, but if it can do that, that's a win. They got to take that as a win, absolutely. And who is doing this? I want to say it's Universal, right? It's Universal who's doing Wolfman because they own the rights to it, if I'm remembering correctly. It's also not a very long movie either. While it's a slow burn, to whatever degree it is a slow burn, it's not a long one. It's only an hour and 43. So with that being said, what did I get for trailers? I got The Amateur with Rami Malek. Looking forward to that. Working Man, basically Jason Statham doing The Beekeeper 2, but under a different name, and kind of getting at the plot of Taken just a little bit. Let's see, what else did I get? 1 second. I'm gonna see if I'm gonna get those trailers up here right now, or list of movies coming out 2025. Okay, here we go. One called The Drop, which was interesting to say the least. Basically, a woman goes on a date, in this fancy restaurant on top of a skyscraper. She keeps getting these calls from someone to say you got to kill the man in front of you, and the question is why, or we're going to kill your kids. And the question is why? What the hell is going on? It's an interesting concept to say the least. Got the full trailer for Companion, by the way, which now that I've seen the trailer, oh, okay, so it's kind of like Ex Machina, except if the whole idea of the sex robot finally worked, and then the robot rebels instead of him prototyping sex robots. Let's see here. There was 2 other ones at least. Hard Eyes, which I'm gonna see Love Hurts that week. I don't give a crap about Hard Eyes. Oh, and then The Woman in the Yard. That's an interesting one, to say the least. It's another Blumhouse as well. Just this woman in black is sitting in a yard, and said today's the day, and she's clearly there's clearly something supernatural about her. The question is, what the hell is the supernatural thing about her? That's the question. Is she just deaf? Is she some sort of psycho killer? Let's see. A lone spectral woman shrouded entirely in black appears in the family and warns them today's the day. Seriously injured, Ramona and Mona must take care of her 14-year-old son and 6-year-old daughter alone in a rural farmhouse. One day, the woman takes form in their yard. Ramona assumes the woman is lost and demented, but as she creeps nearer and nearer to the house, it becomes clear she's no ordinary figure. Her intentions are anything but peaceful, but now Ramona must rally to protect herself and children from the grasp of the woman, simply won't leave them alone. That's the question, isn't it? What is she? Is she death? Is she some sort of like evil like creature or something like that? Like you can see her mostly through the veil. Like not like you can't see it clearly, but you can see a good outline of her through the veil. I think something about her eyes is messed up, whatever it is. But it's a weird concept. Like, who is this person that just keeps creeping closer and closer to the house? What does she want? Why does she keep saying today's the day? Why has she got blood on her hands? So, yeah, it's an interesting concept to say the least. But anyway, I digress. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll see you guys for the next one. Later.